What's up, everybody? It's Izzy. In this video, what I want to talk about is the mentality that I personally use when dealing with injuries or with helping somebody else get through an injury. And it's kind of a tricky business because as athletes, I think what makes athletes feel worse than anything is a sense of a lack of progress, or especially regression. But it doesn't even have to be true. Like, if an athlete just feels like they aren't making progress, even if they demonstrably are, they'll be extremely demotivated. And obviously with an injury, it's a pretty straightforward thing, right? Like, you can't, if it's a bad enough injury, you can't even train at all in that on the particular lift. I mean, usually there's not an injury that keeps you from doing like everything. But in my case, for example, I think about 8 weeks ago now, I tore my left adductor, and initially I could not do any form of leg training basically besides like conventional deadlifts. Anything with even remotely deep hip flexion caused pain. I couldn't do sumo deadlifts, couldn't do any kind of leg training at all. And I think one of the key things that you have to do is switch your mentality into like a rehab mode where you use rehab PRs and rehab benchmarks to keep yourself motivated. So normally when you're progressing, you're going to look at your numbers as to whether or not you're making progress, and you're going to focus on the things that are going to help you increase your numbers, like getting enough sleep, proper nutrition, all of those things. But when you are coming back from an injury, what you need to be focusing on in the exact same manner and bringing your focus and intensity to is the rehab process. So for whatever, that could be particular corrective exercises that you need to do. It could be mobilizing certain areas, and sometimes it's just rest. But by setting these things up as priorities in much the same way that you would set up priorities like, getting your technique down, getting enough sleep, getting enough nutrition, you can change your focus to something where you can make measurable, visible progress in terms of your rehab. And so what I mean by this is, for example, with my injury, it's been about 8 weeks, and I started off not being able to do sumo deadlifts at all. I actually really couldn't even like spread my legs without my adductor hurting. But now I'm at the point where I can do sumo deadlifts. I can do body weight squats. I can squat up to about 2 plates or so before I start getting pain. And that's, immense progress from where I was. And obviously it's very difficult to mentally get yourself to the point where you can consider those legitimate victories and legitimate progress. But if you can do that, it'll help you stay optimistic and stay positive during a period where you are injured. And this is key because your attitude is really going to influence both the results that you get in training and really how fast you recover too, in my experience, from that injury. So finding any way that you can to stay positive is a huge deal. And the main way that I do that is by actually setting rehab and like comeback, whatever, benchmarks, so that you can feel like you're progressing, at least in terms of being able to get back to doing what you want to do, which is training regularly, making progress, and setting PRs. The other thing that really helps is just focusing on what you can do. Instead of constantly focusing on what you can't do because of the injury, focus on what you can improve. So I have an example here. I had a friend that tore their bicep, and they really couldn't do anything other than safety bar squats for like several months. They weren't able to do anything with that arm as far as training goes. And eventually, once they got the bicep rehabbed and they were ready to get back into training, after smashing safety bar squats like basically 3 times a week for 3 months, they set an all-time squat PR and deadlift PR within a month or 2 of getting back into normal training. So instead of getting all butthurt about the fact that they can't do regular squats and deadlifts, this person focused on a weakness that they had, focused on what they could do, and brought up that weakness. And in the long run, it ended up building their general strength base, and they were able to set PRs relatively soon after getting clearance to get back to normal training. And so these are these are things that you can do that will really help mentally, because in my experience, the biggest thing that depresses athletes or gets them down is, again, that sense of not making progress. And so if you can create a scenario where you really believe and buy into the fact that you're making progress, at least in your rehabilitation process, maybe not in terms of PRs, but if you set up these rehab benchmarks and you slowly reach them one by one, checking off boxes, you will get a sense of feeling like you're making progress. And if you focus on the lifts and exercises that you can do and focus on getting as strong as possible in those things, you can derive a sense of progress from those things as well, which will really help keep you optimistic and keep you from getting too down about your injury situation. Anyways, that's really all I had to say about that one. As always, my friends, good luck with your training and have a great day. Peace.